Hello, friends and enemies. My name is Jacqueline Eubanks, and I'm an award-winning best-selling author of the Last Summer series, but you can just call me Jackie. So, I'm here... Oh, shoot. I just spilled tea all over myself. Oh, well, here we go. I haven't done a YouTube video in a really long time, so I'm just kind of winging it, but the reason I brought you all here is because I wanted to talk about my book, All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter. It's recently gotten really popular on Wattpad, which is super weird because I wrote it and uploaded it to Wattpad in the fall of 2017. It was, I think, completed in December of 2017 to be most accurate. So it's just kind of weird that all of a sudden it's taken off in popularity. But I just wanted to thank a lot of you for being interested in it and for going on a journey with me and my characters in that book. That book is really personal to me. To get a little bit deeper into it, it's pretty much autobiographical, almost completely based on my real high school experience. So a lot of what the character alludes to in the bullying and sexual harassment she experienced, I actually did experience, most especially my sophomore and junior years of high school. And when the character Stevie alludes to an incident that happened between her and a boyfriend where it comes out that he in some way attempted to or in fact did assault her. Spoiler alert, I guess, but if you've read it, you already know this. And it's not really a secret, but that is the experience that I write about in the story that happened to the character Stevie actually did, in fact, happen to me. There are some other things that are real too, like the character of Calvin is, in fact, based on my best guy friend from high school who I was secretly in love with for all 4 years. And I won't tell you how that story ended, but the way that the story ended in real life will reflect how the story will end in the book itself. I have plenty of plans for book 2, 3, and 4 at this point. So expect more from Stevie and Calvin. Expect more drama, and expect their friendship to struggle some more, and we'll see if they continue towards love or if nothing ever comes of it. Let's talk about the small town. I am still not sure if I want to keep the town in Indiana or Ohio. I'm not from either Indiana or Ohio, but I am in fact from the Midwest. I'm from northeast of Detroit, and the town that is featured in my book, Beaufort, as I call it, is actually modeled after a town that I live near and that I'm very familiar with called New Haven. And the thing about New Haven, I love that town, and it's definitely seen better days, but, you know, it's got a charm. It's definitely got like a Rust Belt feel. Like, used to be industrial, used to be pretty agricultural, used to be a major stop, I think, on, I think, the Underground Railroad, actually. It was like where escaped slaves, when they finally escaped to freedom, set up. I think also it was a major railroad, just railroad in general, stop. And it clearly had its heyday, but it's not there anymore. And the remnants of the heyday are everywhere, whether it's like an old mill or junkyards or the high school football field and baseball diamond are just totally trashed and just kind of dilapidated and falling apart. But how I became familiar with them is that I actually, played my high school sports at those fields. I didn't go to New Haven High School. I went to a Catholic high school, but because our Catholic school was so small, our school didn't have fields of its own, so that's how we ended up, playing at the New Haven High School field. And whether it was softball, whether it was football, even their gym we used for volleyball, so we did that. And so it just had like a very 1950s, 1960s feel. like its heyday has gone by, and it's kind of grungy, and I like that it has that Midwestern Gothic feel. And I think Midwestern Gothic is a theme I tend towards. I even have like a Pinterest board dedicated to it. I also have a Pinterest board dedicated to teen angst, which is another major theme of this book. I also wanted to use All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter to address the emotional turmoil that most of us go through in high school. As I've said, I was severely bullied and sexually harassed, and I even had to transfer high schools. It was so bad. And I remember being in high school and just thinking, like, life is so awful, you know, thinking I'm never going to make it out, like, just being so desperate to leave and get out of this town and find out who I really am and what I'm really made of and where I want to go and what I want to do, and just feeling so stuck. And I kind of wrote All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter for my high school self and other teens who were like me, who are like me, or like I was. So the book takes place, obviously, the senior year of Stevie's life, senior year of high school. And I wrote it my sophomore year of college, kind of a reflection. I think it was also a time for me to process everything that I had been through, all of the hurt that I had endured, how it left its mark on me. I think I just needed an outlet to try to comprehend, come to terms with what I went through, and how it's kind of a unique high school experience because it was so miserable, but it's also not very unique because I think many people have a miserable experience in high school, and that it's often some of the worst years of our entire life. And those terrible years are compounded by home life that is less than ideal. That's I definitely wanted to tackle the crisis facing modern society of father absence and how it deeply, deeply affects teens, especially young women growing up without their dads. It's a really, really difficult thing to go through, and it can make it very hard to feel loved if one of your parents leaves you behind. And I wanted to give some credit and some justice to those who were left behind by one of their parents. And I know that that's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it is very challenging. It makes already difficult life even that much more difficult. So I wanted to tackle that in the story. I definitely wanted to focus on football because, as many of you have probably no idea, I actually did play football. When I was in middle school, like 5th grade, basically, I played flag football on my Parks and Rec League team, and that actually sparked most of the bullying I would end up going up against throughout my middle school and high school years. So the story behind that is the most popular, no joke, kid in my 5th grade class and I happened just by chance to be on the exact same Parks and Rec football team. And he and I had never even spoken before. And I had no problem with him, and he, I didn't suspect any problem with me. We were basically strangers. But when we were thrown on the same football team, all of a sudden at school, he started picking on me, calling me a retard, calling me pig face and fatso, and other horrible names like that. And eventually everybody else in my class caught on, and that was his last year at my elementary and middle school, but it left a mark. And, like, the bullying didn't stop. Like, because he basically got the snowball rolling, it continued. And then in high school, lo and behold, kind of like a sick joke, he was at my high school. And I thought I had gotten rid of him. I thought I'd been able to move past the legacy that he left for me at elementary school. Oh, no. Oh no, that legacy continued into high school because we happened to go to the same high school, and old habits die hard. And he picked up right where he left off in torturing me. So it continued on, freshman and sophomore year of high school. And I had to learn how to fight for myself and stand up for myself. And those are some tough lessons to learn, especially because in high school, your sense of self-worth greatly comes from your social standing and whether or not you have friends. And I went through a period where I did not have friends. And I had one. I take that back. I had one best friend who really stuck by me through it all. And I'm so thankful for her. We're still best friends to this day. So that's great. But it was just such an awful time. And I ended up having to take Taekwondo to learn how to physically defend myself from attack. So it was definitely an impressionable time. And rarely do 5'3", tiny 110-pound girls have to learn to physically fight football players, but that is the situation I found myself in. And I will tell you, this is 100% true. At the end of sophomore year, I realized the bullying wasn't going to stop. And I had, my guy friend who was basically my Calvin. I won't reveal his name. We need to keep his identity private. He does, in fact, live on a farm, by the way. But we won't dive into him too much, the real life Calvin. But real life Calvin, for me, I was, best friends with, secretly in love with. And I was like, hey, I did football when I was younger. I'm going to do it again because I need to show this kid who's been bullying me since that first football season when we were 10, and all of the other guys on the football team who had been harassing me and bullying me all of freshman and sophomore year, that they are not going to beat me, that I'm not going to take this lying down. And I can play that sport too because I have experience in the past. And if the only way for me to stop being picked on and gain their respect is to fight back and prove to them that I can do what they can do and that I'm not weak, then that's what I'm going to do. So that was what I intended to do. And I remember being shaky and sick to my stomach. And there was spring of sophomore year, they had the football team meeting for the coming fall season. And you were supposed to sign up if you were interested. And they were going to give you a weightlifting schedule, and they were going to hand out uniforms. And I remember telling my Calvin, basically, sign my name up. I'm not going to go to this meeting. I'm too scared. But sign my name on the list. I will be there when they hand out uniforms, and I will be there when they do weightlifting. And I did. I literally, by May of my sophomore year of high school, I had received my football uniform, and I had been weight training with the boys in the afternoons after school. And of course, they weren't happy about it. I stuck very close by my Calvin to make sure that I was safe, because some of those boys did have designs to hurt me, as they had for the previous, 2 years. So nothing new there. But I would have played football for my junior and probably senior years if I'd been allowed. But at that point, my parents finally pulled me out of school because they were tired of me being harassed. And I'm glad they did. There's also a part of me that wonders what it would have been like to fight. And so that's why I wrote this book, because I wanted to examine what it would have really been like for me if I had continued going to that school, if I had continued on the football team, what my season would have been like, if I would have finally been able to gain respect and end the bullying through my own volition, or if nothing would have changed, it could have gotten worse. I don't know. So this book is kind of a literary experiment to see what could have happened to me if I had continued down the path that I set for myself. Now, I guess that brings me back to, there's a part of me that wonders, what is it about this book that people love? because I've read your comments and I've noticed that you're favoriting or voting for my story, or that you make fan art for this story, and I want to know what it is about this story in particular that just seems to attract a lot of positive attention. I'd like to know what it is for you, because I know that for me, this book was very much an expression of the grief of losing what could have been a good high school experience. I think it was also an examination of why me? Why did I have to suffer severe hatred? It was also a study in courage. What does real courage look like? There's another character I want to talk about that's very important to me, and that's the character of Angus. Now, what's currently posted on Wattpad is a really crappy first draft, and the character of Angus, I did not portray him the way exactly that I wanted to. Angus is, in fact, based on a real person who I went to high school with for the first 2 years, and he was also on the football team, and he definitely had his social challenges, and people were really brutally mean to him, and he was just the kindest, most loving, and also just innocent-hearted soul. And I wanted the character Stevie, like I needed to actually, back in high school, to see somebody who actually had it worse than her, to put it in perspective. Because kids were mean to her, and she recognized that, but kids were brutal to my Angus, and he either didn't realize it, or he had no way to stand up for himself. Like, he just didn't have the skills to stand up for himself. And I needed a character who, like Stevie, this character, who was bitter and angry and resentful and confused and clearly depressed and anxiety-ridden, who hated life, who constantly, self-pitied, to step outside of herself, let go of her anger, and put herself to the side and be a hero for once. And that's why I chose to end the book the way I did. Because her redemption ultimately was not gaining the respect of people who had hated her. Because that doesn't mean anything. That's not true redemption, like getting people who hate you all of a sudden to like you. So what? It was always about who she was and how she was not going to let the pain inflicted upon her by others to cause her to become callous. Because that's how this works, right? Like, I assume that kid who started bullying me in 5th grade probably had a terrible, terrible home life. And in fact, I know he did. He, in later years, long after I knew him, has come out and talked about how awful his father specifically is. And he took out his pain on me. And I could easily let it continue. Or I could say, there's enough pain in the world. I'm not going to let it continue through me. The buck stops here, I guess. And that's what I needed the character Stevie to do, is to stop the cycle of abuse and to not let the pain that she suffered cause her to make other people suffer. And I guess that brings me to the character of Justin, who's pretty much the last one that I wanted to address. I know he's kind of a controversial figure. I hope that the reader feels sympathy for Justin. I hope that the character of Justin shows that people struggle and they don't always know how to deal with their struggling properly. And we need to be a little more forgiving. We need to be a little more charitable, because even when people do terrible things, it's often coming from a place of pain that they don't know what to do with. And I had to learn how to forgive all of the people who hurt me, including the ex-boyfriend of mine who attempted an assault. Because I remember, him hinting at having abuse in his past and feeling unloved. And what he did is not right, and what Justin did is not right. It is wrong. So I'm not excusing the wrong at all. But I'm also trying to show that people do things out of pain, and they're way more complex than just, oh, that character is pure evil. It's like, is he pure evil? Or is he just kind of sad? And does he need some sympathy and some forgiveness and some love? So I wanted to tackle the theme of forgiveness, which I had to come to terms with in my real high school experience, is learning to forgive everybody who had hurt me. So I guess that's pretty much it. Other characters that are based on real people, the character of Tractor, he is based on a friend of mine who had a very similar nickname. The character of Josh is based on a real character, or a real person in my life, an old childhood friend. So yeah, most of the story is based on real life. If you follow my Instagram account, you'll see that I posted photos of the real life New Haven to show kind of the inspiration for the story. So if you follow me on Instagram, you can see those photos. Also on Pinterest, I have Pinterest boards of like Midwestern Gothic, of teen angst, and of All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter in general. And I even have like a secret Stevie Rogers character board, which I might, make unsecret, just because then you guys can see the, images that are inspiring the characters, or like bolstering my image of the characters. And then I also have some playlists too. So if you're interested in listening to some character playlists, some story playlists, I also have those on Spotify. Yeah, I plan on publishing All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter at some point. It needs to go through some heavy editing. It is not done. There's a lot of things I need to fix. But I hope that this expose has been enlightening, and that it's given you maybe a new perspective or a deeper appreciation for the story in itself. And I just want to continually thank all of you for taking the time to read it, to vote for it, to put it on your shelf, to follow me on Wattpad, to leave comments, to make character fan art, to brag about it on social media. For all of you who probably shared it with other people or talked about it with other people, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I want this story to be heard. I think it's a story that needs to be heard, and I think that the main character, I hope, represents an untalked about population, and that by sharing this story, we can share the true story of millions of other people just like us. Thank you.